Well, I've been making videos over here about the lone wolf for quite some time. One question that will come up, the one that has to do with how do you get your sexual needs met? And I haven't responded to those questions because I prefer to let them be until now, I guess, as this video aims to address that question and gain a deeper understanding of why this is important to some people. Sex was never intended to be for pleasure. It's for procreation. Once sex is for pleasure, you have desire, you have greed, you don't have love. But I'd say it can also be for creation of energy between two people. And if not done in a mindful way, this can lead to a leaking of energy or a taking on of energy that is toxic, corrupt, or simply not in alignment with your own. Or maybe it is because your energy is off. So for many a lone wolf, sexual energy has to come to be something very sacred, as most of us have already leaked out way too much of it in the years behind us. So now we choose to reserve it for ourselves. But before you come to this lesson, you're stuck on drawing an energy from someone else, or you feel the urge to be the giver of something to someone else. It can result in quite the entanglement and leave one prone to things such as trauma bonds. Someone has treated you poorly, but the sex was so good. It keeps you coming back. You overlook their insincere ways to feel held in their arms and in between their legs. A common trauma for us lone wolves includes sexual abuse, harassment, manipulation, and even violence and violation. Healing this wound means we have to hold our own vulnerable sexuality close to our hearts as we rebuild our house of self-respect. And where we go from there, well, that really depends on the peace we've made by healing those wounds. The lone wolf empath may choose to no longer sexualize their being. They no longer make their main objective in finding affection and sexual attention from someone else. So where does this addiction come into play? Sex addiction, love addiction, the addiction to dopamine and validation from others. When your being has become dependent on someone else's love and attention to feel worthy and satisfied. Cue the trauma bond, the codependency, the limerence, the need for external validation. When you're dealing with stuff like that, then people are your drug. If you've used other people for love, then you must abstain from intimate love with others and discover what love really is from within. Everything that happens in any other addiction happens in a love addiction too. It's still as disruptive to your life, but it's confusing because the solution to most problems is to find love. If that love from others doesn't heal me, then what will? I'm a lost cause. No one will ever love me. My suggestion is that you learn how to fall in love with yourself. Please yourself. Validate yourself. Romanticize yourself. And no, that's not selfish. This is you taking your own power back instead of consistently giving it away. A life of celibacy isn't a curse. It can be a deeply profound spiritual experience. And many a lone wolf are here for just that, where you never intentionally set out for it to be that way, but you discover how deeply healing it can be to no longer hand that part of yourself over to anyone anymore. I write about this to a certain degree in my second book. Well, technically my third book. Many of you may not know the first book I wrote, that was poetry and prose. One day I'll get around to publishing it on other platforms. But the third book I wrote, called Diary of a Lone Wolf, it documents my life from a teenager to just turning 30, and it screams love addiction all over it, as well as other addictions too. There was this desperate search I had to find the one, as much as there was this need to be pleased sexually, and that sexual acts were equivalent with, they like me. But of course, At the time, I was early in that behavior and I didn't see anything wrong with it. I thought it was quite normal and that I had a healthy libido, but it was a wounded libido, focused on getting attention. It was my drug, and I was always on the search to see who I could get on board to provide it to me. Just like the addict who will never toast with a glass of champagne, the love addict can never join in another sexually intimate relationship. Does that sound harsh? Did I say never? Well, never say never. But what that love addiction led you toward, just like any other addiction, was self-abandonment. And you didn't even realize it. You didn't even have the conscious thought to know that that's what you were doing. I sure didn't know at the time that every time I gave my sexual attention to someone else, I abandoned myself. Unless, as I said, it was for creation of some sort. And rarely was anything ever created other than a lot of heartbreak, mistakes, trauma, and suffering. Not always, no, but ultimately, yes. People who are love addicts can rarely go for more than 6 months single. And even during that time, they're on the hunt. They're searching. They're looking for someone to be with. And those who do give up, they didn't really give up. They found other addictions, like porn, prostitutes, or some other dopamine hitting drug that they can get their hands on. One of the things I've spoken about enough times in my Lone Wolf series of videos is the issue of addiction, whether that's to substances, people, or relational behaviors like being controlling. A large part of our healing work must address that elephant in the room. And once you do, yeah, you might appear to be that avoidant person at first because you have to be willing to admit that your life has become unmanageable. There's a lot of consequences that will follow by abandoning yourself in this way. So the reward you receive for doing this work is that life becomes so much more manageable. You actually understand what it means to show up for yourself. If you thought you knew what that meant before, well, now you really do. And so how does this get done? Well, it's within the word how. If we use it as an acronym: honest, open-minded, and willing. Are you willing to let go of your addiction? Because you're getting something out of it. Are you willing to sit with the discomfort now that will come, which is going to be boredom, loss, grief, loneliness, and depression for a while? And if so, then will you be open-minded enough to consider that you may never be able to pick up again? Because there's that honesty part. Can you get so honest with yourself to accept this is the best choice you could have ever made for yourself? To date yourself, to be in a relationship with yourself, because when is the last time you actually tried that? Instead of distracting yourself and abandoning yourself. How many times did I say the word abandoning so far? Quite a bunch. If you're not familiar with what that means, it's a really key lesson to understand. And once you've given yourself a year of cleaning up your sexual energy, then could you do two? It's always one day at a time over here. Get through today. Let's see how it goes tomorrow. Until day after day just come and go and you realize it's no longer pressing on you. You no longer sit with fear that no one will ever love you again. Oh no, I'll be single for the rest of my life. You'll no longer feel the pull or the longing to be with someone. And by the way, if you're having a longing, then that's part of the addiction. Because that longing, after time, after you've overcome this, the longing is gone. Till something might sneak back in, a desire to have something, to have a relationship again. After all the work you've done, after all the progress you've made, you think you deserve this now. You think you're ready for this now. And maybe you are. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point to being in a relationship with yourself is just that. Not to later get something from someone else later on. If it happens and it's natural and organic and it doesn't cause you to abandon yourself again, but can someone who gave up alcohol for a year go back to alcohol with limits, with new rules, with boundaries? They may not have a desire to do that because they've seen what life is like without it and how much better of a person they have become. You see, it becomes something deeper than just your own standards at this point because you had something in you that was unhealthy. Maybe you have to come to accept that you can't be like other people in relationships and that no matter how much healing you do, isn't going to land you in a healthy relationship. Because as I said, that something in you that was unhealthy, regardless of how much you think you've healed it, it's still there. Healing isn't about removing something and making it go away. It's about coming to accept it. And it's likely that it took you nearly 50 years to figure this out. So why not just take that wisdom, that acceptance, and spend the next 50 years getting to know yourself even better without the arm candy, without the ride or die, without the plus one. Just be the one. Let me share something very candid with you that I wrote 7 years ago, which, by the way, was in my last cycle of development. If you've seen my video on 7-year cycles. So it took me this long to figure out as I'm now entering the next cycle. Why am I 42 years old and still wondering if this is love? In and out of mystery, but always connected. Until I connect to someone else. Is this love that I'm feeling? I know that's a song. This new guy I met, he gets me like no one else has ever gotten me. He seeks to find the truth inside of me while I try to express myself to him. He is real. This is after a week of communication and just over 24 hours of time spent in person. A sleepover already and sex 3 times. He kisses me with passion and he makes my middle finger tingle when I think of him. That is a connection to the heart chakra. My heart was fluttering when I was around him. I couldn't contain myself when I was around him. He plays everything so cool and later tells me what was going on inside of himself. He expresses his feelings to me and tells me he likes me, he misses me, and he apologizes if he thinks he said something wrong. Is this love that I'm feeling? No, it wasn't love. It was a love addiction. That tingling in the middle finger of my left hand would be felt again with another person I dated for too long who turned out to be the same kind of person, similar qualities that were unhealthy for me. But I overlooked them. I focused on the positive. I was too much of an optimist and not enough of a realist. I was naive. I was gullible and easily coerced. I was also punished whenever I'd stand up for myself and express my true feelings. There's the trauma bond. For some of us, our radar is off. And for addicts, that comes down to the chemistry in our brains. And for us neurodivergent folks, it goes even deeper. What am I missing in there? Some kind of dopamine reward system. And what I have instead is conditioning toward chaos, toward suffering and punishment. But now, just let all that go. Rewire your brain. Rewire your reward system, which is why this single on-purpose life, being abstinent from the harmful behaviors you once enjoyed, will be boring and lonely, but also oh so peaceful and eventually so rewarding. You start to congratulate yourself for this new life you're choosing, which adds another layer of empowerment onto the wounds you are healing. So when you ask me what a lone wolf does for companionship on an intimate level, you're asking the wrong question. You're asking this question from your wounded, love-seeking driven brain. The question needs to be, how does a lone wolf learn to reconnect with themselves from a healed, self-loved, wired brain? And the answer to that is, as I said before, with honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.